I really like this website and I should read it more, but I just don't, because sometimes I simply don't have the time, guys. But anyway, we're back on One Angry Gamer, because as I was searching for the Call of Duty article, I found this. Now there's two articles on this, and this is a game called House Party. And House Party is what they term as a raunchy sex comedy game. It's an adventure game. It's also a puzzle game. So immediately, I'm not really interested in it because I don't like puzzle games. I just don't like solving puzzles. I find it boring. I find it really just frustrating. And it's not that I can't do it. It's the patience. I very much prefer adventure games that are more in an action vein or turn-based strategy or RTS type stuff. But that's just me. That's me. That's what I like. However, what I don't like is particular groups trying to remove games to censor them because they don't like the content. Now, what happened with this game is that they received a lot of complaints from SJWs, not just on the left, but on the right. Now, what essentially happened was they were Steam greenlit a while back without really much of an issue, although the same groups that attacked them back then, who were trying to stop them from being greenlit because it dared to have an adult theme, dared to have a sexual theme, a comedic theme, nudity and sex in it, because for some reason films can be as raunchy as they can be, and some Hollywood films can even have actual penetrative sex on screen, actual blowjobs, and not be considered pornography. But this game, which isn't real, which has sex as a very minor part of the game itself, even though it's more of a theme, this should be censored. This should be banned because, of course, think of the children, think of the women's, think of all the things you could possibly think of as to why left-wing and right-wing SJWs don't particularly like sex and all these other things like violence in the case of hatred in their video games. It's probably that. Now, Steam actually caved in to this particular complaints and removed the game, although temporarily. So these game devs had their game, in my opinion, forcibly removed, wrongfully removed, and they had to then basically reach an agreement with Valve where they would censor the game and basically try and get it back up, because Valve were very vague about what they wanted on this particular game and what they wanted censored. But apparently they are going to make a patch. They are going to make a patch that people can download to get the game uncensored. That seems to have been a compromise that they've both made, and I'm glad it's going to be back on, and you will be able to play it without the censorship, albeit you have to download a patch. They won't be able to do a switch, which was recommended to them. It's not doable. It might be to do with the engine, or maybe they're just not be able to do that. It doesn't matter, as funny as it sounds, an SJW trigger. But what gets me, and this is what both articles have pointed out, and let me just go and name you a few things. Valve is very, very, very inconsistent with regards to what they allow on Steam, because, as they say, they do not allow pornographic sexual imagery and stuff like that, even though they have games like The Witcher, Mass Effect, and ecchi games, you know, the stuff that Louis Laveau plays. Basically, you can imagine that. And there was one game they consistently mention, which is called Lady Killer in the Bind, and that apparently has an uncensored rape scene. And GTA 5, of course, has some sexually explicit scenes in regards to that game. And, of course, the developers are rightfully miffed that Valve has an inconsistent application. What it should be is this: when a game developer creates a piece of art, they should be allowed to release that piece of art, because it's not going to harm anybody, it's not going to harm kids. Kids should not be allowed to play it. Parents should be given the opportunity to not allow the kid to play this game, having, I don't know, like a pin, a password or something, like a child protection thing. That will stop them from playing this game and buying the game. You have to write a pin in, and then they won't be able to buy it. So there you go. But no, apparently not. They've got to censor it. but then be inconsistent and allow games like The Witcher and GTA 5 and all those other games to appear and fall to a backlash whenever they get complaints by right-wing and left-wing idiots. This is what we have to deal with on the regular basis with the gaming industry. For some reason, the gaming industry is not allowed to grow up, even though social justice warriors love to say, look, games need to grow up, they need to become more adult, they need to become more mature. Yet when game developers like the guys who made this game, Eek Games, when they try to do what is essentially a sex comedy like you would see in any of the Hollywood films, like The Hangover, things like that. Sex comedies, that's what they are. This is what this is. It is an adult game. It is exploring adult themes like The Witcher and other things. They don't let that. They don't like it. They won't allow it. Because, of course, it's demeaning, objectification, and it's dangerous to the kids. So what do they want? More adult, mature games, which is pretty much the majority of the market at this point, because the majority of gamers are adults in their 30s and 40s, and increasingly their 20s with my generation. So, what do they want? Do they want that? Or do they want Disney games? You've got to make a choice. Okay? This inconsistency annoys me, and it's just part of the reason why these people are so thoroughly unlikable. Defend games. To the game, everybody out there, defend these games. Defend these artists the right to release these games the way they intended it without censorship. Valve needs to stop being consistent. They need to actually implement some kind of thing so that kids can't play these games. Because also they've got to be careful, because there's now an ID check that the UK government is going to introduce, because you know it's part of the great nanny state of Britain and Northern Ireland, right? As I mentioned before, this is what the Conservative government and the Labour government before them, and well, as far back as you can go, these two political parties want to create a nanny state. And that's what they're doing with that. Valve has got to be careful with that. But, I don't know, I'll be going ahead with myself there. So, I'll leave it at that. Don't censor games. House Party deserves all our support. And games like that deserve our support. So, until next time, I'll see you all later.